Welcome. Welcome to video number 14 of Spiritual Topics Tuesday. Tonight's topic is on, does cannabis have a place in spiritualism? As always, we've got an amazing lineup of spiritual leaders that are ready to give their perspectives on the topic. Before we get started, let me remind everyone that at the end, everyone on the panel's information will be posted. So if someone resonates with you and you want to reach out, you have that ability. As well, it's our goal to provide different perspectives in hopes that anyone looking for answers will find at least one perspective that resonates with them. So let's introduce ourselves as we prepare to get this party started. I'm Randy Sands, psychic, animal communicator, medium, tarot reader, numerologist, and teacher of all the above. And Tabitha, would you like to begin with the introductions?
Hi, I'm Tabitha Latshaw. I'm one of the owners of Elemental Magic in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My specialty is animal communication and healing, but we dabble in everything.
Oh, I'll go next. I'm Tamara. Just like Tabitha, I'm a witch, I'm a psychic, and do a lot of healing as well.
Sarah?
I'm Sarah Sachs, medium based in Pittsburgh. I'm a medium, psychic, Reiki master, tarot reader, and I have my YouTube channel, Sarah Sachs Medium on the Go, and I do tarot readings on current events. I just did one today, so I just wanted to put that plug in.
Gotta go watch it. You guys.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Christine Colin-Kern. I'm an intuitive empath. I'm in Erie, Pennsylvania. I do tarot oracle card readings, intuitive readings. I do intuitive health readings for humans and for animals. I'm an animal communicator, and I am in the final stages of my training to become a vet tech, and I should be done May 9th and have my degree as a vet tech.
Awesome.
You go get it, girl. Go get it.
Like my llamas. I got llamas on my scrub top today.
Woo-hoo!
Llamas.
Very cute.
As I mentioned earlier, tonight's topic is on, does cannabis have a place in spiritualism? And I think that Tabitha is going to get us started.
I am very excited about this topic because I am a 24-hour-a-day smoker. That is not even a lie. And I sort of started smoking and found my spirituality at the same time. So to me, it has a huge place. It seems like when I smoked marijuana, especially in the beginning, it would put me in this place to receive messages that were from other worlds that, I don't think that I would have relaxed and opened up and quieted my mind enough to receive these messages. And they were sort of my guidance on my path of what I was going to do and what I'm meant to do. And, I still hear them very clearly. I don't always need the cannabis, but the cannabis needs me. So I'm just saying I really, really very deeply believe that it has its place. Absolutely. Because there are some of us that just can't, I want to say, close our mind, quiet our inner voices enough to be able to get to that place where we can really get deep into our spirituality.
Okay.
I'm next.
Yes.
Okay, it's been, I was thinking, I don't know what I'm going to say because it's been decades since I've partaken in that. But I was also thinking that, mind-altering drugs have played a part. I know that there is the peyote for the Indians and their spiritual practices. LSD has been used for to help people with psychological traumas. And I had read a few years ago that Cary Grant, of all people, took LSD as part of his therapy work.
Really?
Yes, he did. Isn't that wild?
Yes.
Yes, and he did. He was a regular user, but it was, I guess,
Microdose,
huh?
like microdosing,
Microdosing.
enough to be competent in what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but I think it was in a therapeutic situation because I know that when back in my college days, some of the people that were a little older, more in the hipster beatnik era, had begun experimenting with LSD, I guess back in the 50s. I mean, it wasn't so, all of this does go back a ways. Um, and I think cannabis probably has a place in this as well. Um, and I could see where it would be where if I remember, it does kind of open up your mind and consciousness, but in the way where it the way that maybe that needs to be guided a little bit too, or else it's just sort of like listening to Led Zeppelin and eating a lot too. So but and I do think it has its place. It's had its place with cancer treatment and and so psychological things and people that have eating disorders. So why not in the spiritual world? I think that it's something. I don't know that I would ever do it again, but I think it's something to look into, and I'm really glad to see it's been decriminalized. That's really good because I don't think it's nearly as harmful as drinking. But I think under certain, like the Indians do with the peyote and all this sort of thing, that if it's done in a ceremonial, spiritual setting, that I do see where if memory serves me correctly, I do see where it could be useful. So that's it for me.
Yeah.
All right.
So I guess that's me next. This was a tough topic for me because I've never tried cannabis ever. And in my own experience, I think it would actually hamper my connection, but that doesn't mean that it can't be helpful for other people. I
Right.
can see that it would have a role for some individuals. For me, it's actually not my own voice in my head that I have to quiet. It's the ones coming in that I would have to quiet, and they're the ones that I'm listening to. So it would have the opposite effect of what I would want. And like I said, I can see how it would be helpful for other people. And I really believe that when it comes to our spirituality, when it comes to connecting to the other side, we all have to find our own path. And what's right for me and what takes me to the proper place is not necessarily what's going to take anybody else there.
Right.
So if it means using a drug in a ceremonial way, like peyote or cannabis or opium or whatever it is, LSD even, if that works and it has a proper place in your practice that is a respectful practice, it's not just, hey, let's get high and do this, but that it is actually for, I mean, you can do that too, but if it has a role in your ceremony, right? I mean, actually, when we're connecting with spirit, it's very sacred, right? We always want to thank spirit and all of that. We have these pieces in place, and I think if the drug is introduced in the same way with the same respect and the same ritual to it, then I think it could be very useful to certain people. I don't think people that are paranoid should use it.
Right.
Because I think that would take them in the wrong way in terms of the wrong messages coming through. But even things like sweat lodges, right? The Native Americans used the sweat lodges as a drug, basically, right? They were putting their bodies into extreme situations that caused a different mental sensation, right? It opened them up to new sensations. So that could be used in a similar way as cannabis could be too. And like I said, everybody has to find the key that opens their own door to the other side. I was lucky enough that the door was already open for me, and I just kind of walked through it, and then I figured out how to close it behind me. But not everybody is that way. Some people really need more direction or more dilution in order to find that pathway, right? Because there's so much static for them that they can't hear or see where they're supposed to go. And in that case, something like cannabis could calm the pathway down enough so that you can see it. So for me personally, it's not something that I would choose to use because I think it would actually counter my abilities rather than bolster them. But I think it can help some people with it too.
Okay.
All right, I guess I'm next.
You are.
Much like Tabitha, I smoke right alongside her. For me, it does also quiet the voices, helps me to relax and focus on what it is that I'm trying to do and what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. But approaching it from a witchy perspective, as a Wiccan witch, that's an herb, a plant, just like we would use any other plant in a magical working. And so, I believe that it was put here for our use, not our abuse, but for our use in a respectful and sacred manner.
Okay, does that mean it's my turn, or are you still talking?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Are you sure? Because I'm
positive.
content to wait.
I am positive. Tabitha covered a lot of what we think a lot alike. So, what one of us says, the other one usually agrees with.
Okay, because I'm going to open the lid on some things.
Let's hear it.
So, first of all, I got to tell you guys, each week at this point, I want to start speaking words of wisdom. You guys should be grateful. You guys should be grateful that I contain myself because, there would be ears bleeding everywhere. Trust me on that. It'd be really, really bad. For me, it really comes down to a personal decision on how you choose to do your spiritual growth, what works best for you. I always say that your spiritual growth should be something that you practice your way under your rules. If this topic really interests you, I would highly encourage you to pick up this book, Cannabis and Spirituality by Stephen Gray. There is fabulous research compiled in this book that shows many cultures. I had been asked to do this before. As a matter of fact, on this channel, there was one that was done quite some time ago. And my wife and I were walking through Barnes and Nobles, and this book literally fell out on the floor. I picked it up and I said, oh, well, I guess we're going to do it now. There are many cultures, such as Rastafarians, my people, the Jews, Pygmies, and I can never pronounce this right, so please forgive me if I butcher it. The sadhus, that have practiced, dating back, some to the Stone Ages. I know the Jews date back to the Old Testament and their use. Apparently, there's a school of thought that cannabis originated in Asia, and that was back in the Stone Ages. And there's indications that it was a factor in establishing Taoism. And it's also been used in India. The Hindus drank something they called soma, or, you guys, forgive me if I butcher this too, bhang, B-H-A-N-G, which was made of cannabis. As a matter of fact, in 2001, it said that 60 million worshipers attended their most important festival, which again, forgive me if I butcher this. I believe it's called Kimberly Mela. And they smoked and drank the drink that I was telling you about. So, as I said, it's my belief that this comes down to a personal choice, whether to incorporate this into your spiritual practice or not. I can tell you when I was younger, I was a 24/7 user too. And that lasted up into my 30s.
That's
Today,
when I started.
Me too.
No.
Today, I have what I called scheduled spiritual retreats. These are times I do probably 3 times a year where I use aids like ayahuasca, combo, bufo, to commune and get closer to God, which I find not only helps me grow spiritually, but it helps improve my mediumship in leaps and bounds.
Wow.
Is cannabis ever, yeah, I'm getting ready for a bufo ceremony within the next 2 weeks, by the way. Is cannabis ever incorporated into those retreats? Sometimes, yeah. It's not something I really do outside of my retreats. And the biggest reason why I kind of curbed that in my 30s was because for me, it zaps my motivation. Yes, it quiets the monkey brain, but it really, for me, it zaps my motivation. I could just become a couch potato and then I become very unhappy. So for me, that's why it's my personal choice. I do it on occasion, and I kind of leave it there. And for me, I would certainly give myself a few days before I did readings, just because I want to make sure that I'm clear. Other people, I know it brings them better readings. So, I'm not here to judge. Everybody has to do what works for them. Either way, no one can say what's right and what's wrong. It really has to come down to personal choice. And there's a lot of places, I don't mean to out anything, but, like Lilydale is very much against it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you know what?
Number one reason why we don't live there.
I say stop making rules for other people,
Yes.
So for me in my journey, I use ayahuasca when I want a mild journey where I get downloads. I use combo for healing. It heats the body and rids inflammation. And I use bufo, which is a much shorter, it's like a 20-minute time span. I use that when I want to go straight to God for spiritual learning. So
Wow.
that is my spin on everything. And y'all are welcome. I didn't sing Speaking Words of Wisdom.
I like it.
And if anybody has anything they want, that came up for them that they want to share, please, by all
I
means.
would like to say that, I do agree with being able to pay attention after you've smoked and do a reading. I don't really recommend that. Like, I don't usually do that because I'll start to go off and hear all the other voices that are going on, and I'm not really focusing on what I need to be focusing on. But there are times when it's like I need to relax because I get performance anxiety, I would say. And I need to like calm that part of my brain that's like, you can't do this. You're going to mess this up. So I really feel like, I can do enough just to relax myself and then don't take it any further, because I do feel like, maybe it won't keep my concentration as sharp as it needs to be. But like this morning, for example, we had to go to somebody's house and they wanted us to tell them whether their dog was ready to cross over. Now, I really didn't want to do this reading, because it's, that's really a hard thing to do. But on the way there, I'm like, there's no way I'm getting through it if I don't like smoke a little bit first, because like it was so emotional and I knew it was going to be so emotionally draining, and it was, and I was that I smoked first because it was awful. It was just awful.
You know why? Because you knew the dog was ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in those cases, it's the emotion is not over the dog, it's over telling the people that the dog
Yes.
is ready,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
That, yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. And that's what I tried to tell her. I'm like, I'm sitting here crying with this woman, and I'm like, it's not, don't think your dog's sad. Your dog isn't sad. It's transitioning. You're sad because you think your dog's sad. And that's not it. That's our emotion,
Right.
but so I knew it was going to be like a cry fest. It was.
And by the way, everybody, there's a few of us animal communicators that come May. We'll be doing segments like this on animal communication. And we'll even do a few lotteries where people can win, and get some readings where we all come together and link together and do some readings. So that's something to look for. Anybody else want to add anything?
Yes, I did enjoy hearing about the sweat lodges because I've done a number of them, and I never, I never did think which is kind of silly, but you really do go into an altered state of consciousness. And then I think of my history of substance abuse, and that maybe those of us that have a history of it and don't want to dabble in the old times, we remember enough of the good stuff about being in the altered state that when we go to a sweat lodge or something like that, we can get into that, because all it is an altered state of consciousness. Right. I mean, mediumship or psychic work, Reiki, you do get into an altered state, but I've been thinking about other things that we do to get into and a sweat lodge is one. And I remember one of the last one I did was in 2017. And I remember sitting there at one point, just sweating my brains out. And but the grandmother that I never knew, my father's side, she died before like 10 years before I was born. So she came to me and she said, this is weird because it was a very Native American situation. And she came to me and said, I helped put your parents together because I wanted your father and his wife to have children that did have some Indian blood, and then which I do on my mother's side. She said, but it's too bad that didn't work out, but that was their choice. And then she kind of disappeared. And I thought that was very interesting. So I am very much interested in it, American, Western Hemisphere indigenous ceremonies, and that is an altered state of consciousness. And there are other things, but because of my history, I just have to get into a certain mental condition to get there and to get connected. And of course, meditation is a very big part of that. But I also feel as though with cannabis and a few experience I had with psychedelics, that it really did. Not that I'd ever want to go down that crazy path again, but there were some experiences that I thought really did help mold me into who I am today. So we do things that really do put us in altered states, whether they're with substances or not. But I'm really I'm not meaning to be judgmental, but I'm thinking that sometimes it really is necessary to do it in a guided or ceremonial way.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and for me, like I said, I've never used cannabis or any other drugs to get into that frame of mind, but I have used music. For me, music is what takes me to that altered mental state and gets me better connected to my spirituality, to the other side. Oftentimes it will help me with my astral traveling. So I think it's about what hits the right receptors in you.
Yes.
Is it the heat? Is it music? Is it the the drug, the plant, the element, whatever it is you want to say, it has to hit all the right chords. And for me, those chords are actually musical chords. So
I just hate astral traveling because the landings are always rough, and it usually happens when I'm sleeping and you're like, "Whoa, what happened?"
well, and that's why I'm always tired, because I'm always
Yeah, because you
traveling.
don't get any sleep when you
I
do
don't.
that.
I really don't.
I went on one trip a few years ago to see my sister when she was in the hospital, and that's in Brookings, Oregon. I could not sleep that whole night. I kept having these crash landings, and like I was like, okay, enough. Can we
Just
just
stay
do
put.
one trip? Do we have to make a bunch of them? Just one.
Yes.
By the way, with sweat lodges, I was partially raised by a woman that was 100% Native American. And depending on the tribe, some of them incorporate cannabis into their sweat lodges.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Wow.
I've been in them. I've been in them and I've partaken, which takes it to a whole different level.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, yeah.
It really does, and it's quite the experience. And Sarah, did you know that ayahuasca is a treatment for addiction?
It is. I've heard of that, but I'm not too sure about what it does. But I know it's a ceremonial
There
drug.
are people flocking to the Amazon. I know, as a matter of fact, the gentleman that conducted my first ayahuasca ceremony was a heavy heroin addict that used to use with his cousin. They were always together, and one day they were apart, and the cousin used, overdosed, and died. And he decided he was going to get clean. And someone suggested to him that he goes to the Amazon, to the tribes. And he did. And he never used again. I can't speak, well, I shouldn't say never, as of that time, as of the time I knew him, because we haven't talked in years. As of the time I knew him, he hadn't ever used again. But it was quite the experience. And because he was so used to cooking the heroin and good with measurements, they saw that in him and they trained him. And he had been doing ayahuasca ceremonies all over the world. He did big ones in Russia, big ones. So yes, that's an addiction. People with, or a cure for, well, I don't want to say a cure because, they say once an addict, my wife, who has
It's a
a
tool.
lot of years.
It's a tool. I would say it's a tool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
LSD has been, in fact, one of its early uses was to get people off of heroin, to take them on the journey of the trip, that sort of thing. So that has been clinically used for opiate addiction.
But a lot of people are with addiction issues have been flocking to the Amazon, and coming back and not using.
It
And
makes me want to scratch my mosquito. Those mosquitoes would kill me.
they, trust me, in the Amazon, they know what to do to, they know what plants and what herbs and what everything to use.
I couldn't take them in Lilydale or Puerto Rico. I don't think I could take them down there.
Oh, Lilydale.
Nope.
I become a pin cushion for them.
I sometimes, when it's really bad at the stump, especially for the 5:30, I call it the Amazon because it's just awful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I become their banquet. I become their buffet bar. They just, for whatever reason, they just like me. I could be with other people and they'll get bit a few times, but like no, I walk out like
Covered.
I need blood or something.
You have the right type, apparently.
Hey, it's the new blood. I've got 3.5% of the world has mine. So
Yeah.
it's a new blood type. So they must like it.
There you go.
They got tired of all
another
the
thing
others.
another thing that occurred to me was of really being in an altered state was when I was at a couple of the times I was at Arthur Findlay at the UK, and I didn't take the trance course per se, but they did have some of that as part of the course. And I never thought that I could get it, although I did get that with the trance healing. But near the end, the last time I was there 7 years ago, it was very interesting because Amon closed all of the drapes in the big room, the mansion, and I thought, okay, he said, okay, I'm gonna, talk you into the trance, and I went, yeah, right, here we go again. And I sat there, and it's sort of like I kind of blanked out, and I thought it was only 5 minutes. And when he slowly brought the lights up and people tuned into my energy, apparently it had been 20 minutes. And that there had been, and they had agreed, there had been a transfiguration where they did see an American Indian form over me and said it was really quite beautiful. But the whole thing is that my concept of time was kind of like really wacky because I thought it was just a very few minutes. And when they said it was 20 minutes, I couldn't believe it. And they said I was really gone with that. So someday I do want to do their week of trance because I haven't seen anything on this side of the Atlantic that really impressed me, but I did see some demonstrations once at Arthur Findlay and the other time at the Zwanenhof in the Netherlands that really, really blew me away. I mean, they were just, the mediums were incredible. But, and then when you sit in that energy with a really, really good trance medium, you do soak in some of that too. It's hard to explain, but it's an amazing experience. So I guess with my addictive little soul, I have discovered ways in which you can get there, but but without any outside help, I'll say.
Anyone else have anything to add? Or are we ready to sign off?
This was an interesting discussion to me, Joe.
Well, I'm glad. That's what it's supposed to be.
I know.
All right. So as we close out tonight, it's as always our sincere hope that, if you were looking for answers, you got at least one perspective that resonates with you. As always, again, we are honored that you choose to spend your valuable time with us. It's an honor and a privilege for us to have you. And if anybody has any particular topic they would like us to go over, please let us know so we can get it into our schedule. So now I'm sure everybody would like to say good night to y'all.
Good
Good
night.
Good night. Good night.
So with that said, you have a week as amazing as you. Until next week, bye-bye.